So, a while back, I was playing through the whole Uncharted series for the first time, shooting baddies and robbing colonized peoples of their precious heirlooms for money, and something troubled me. And it wasn't the fact that Nate Drake is 2 steps away from being a British museum curator. You see, Uncharted 3 has segments in both Syria and Yemen, and neither of them are portrayed as bombed fucklands, none of the characters even acknowledging that there's a war going on. This is understandable given that Uncharted 3 was released in 2011, the same year that the Arab Spring started, which implies it was written and planned a good deal before that. That got me thinking, though. What if Nate Drake was actually a bad luck omen to these countries? Is there another scenario where he's been at a country conveniently right before it descends into turmoil? Well, you read the title of the video, I assume, so yes he does. In almost every game he's ever been in. Sit back and get yourself a Subway sandwich, registered trademark, cause this is the Uncharted Curse. To set a few ground rules, we're going through any and all Uncharted games, comics, and books. Originally, I was going to do just the games, but there's a lot of places that got fucked over by Nate in some of these books. Secondly, I'm going to try to ignore things that aren't unusually shitty for their respective countries. We could count a bomb going off in China, but not a politician dying of natural causes or hunger crises in the Central African Republic. Or anything in Mississippi. The Uncharted series takes Nathan Drake, Indiana Jones XP, and slight psychopath through various different foreign locales to hunt down treasure. From the second game onward, these got a reputation for taking you to dozens of different locations the world over in search of a mystical treasure that will end up buried for whatever reason, usually with the bad guy dying along with it. The first game is a bit of an unusual one, in that it takes place on an actual Uncharted island in the middle of the Pacific. Yeah, it's unusual for the game to actually follow its namesake. Neat. There is a section, though, where you search the Panamanian... God, who the fuck made that word? Panamanian rainforest. Nathan Drake setting foot in this rainforest for the first 3 chapters of the game, however, was enough for a deadly cough syrup poisoning that killed 365 Panamanians. Apparently, according to a now-dead Link, in 2007 some imported poisonous glycol was actually labeled as glycerin, a commonly used food additive, the exact same year that Uncharted 1 came out. It's amazing how it took over 300 people dropping dead in the streets to catch that little oopsie, but the Panamanian government aren't known for anything, really. This may sound like just a weird coincidence, but as we move along, there's a lot more. 2009's Uncharted 2 features Drake going on his first big journey, from Turkey to Indonesia to Nepal to Tibet. Out of all of those, Turkey is the only one where nothing exceptionally bad happened. In 2009, Indonesia would undergo a massive series of earthquakes throughout the entire year, killing thousands and displacing millions. But Indonesia isn't the only country to occupy the island Drake visits, Borneo. For good measure, Drake also brought an epidemic of swine flu to Malaysia that killed a not insignificant amount of people. He's very generous like that. Nate giveth and Nate taketh away. Nepal is next on the train, and the funny thing about Nepal is it was actually embroiled in civil war during the game's development. The game, of course, used this as fuel for its main baddie Lazarevich to somehow be behind the entire civil war, which is classy, American game designer persnickety pooch. The same can be said of Tibet, which was going through a bit of a real one and being brutally suppressed for it. Naughty Dog doesn't even bother to show us this, presumably because they couldn't figure out a way for Lazarevich to also be the head of the CCP. God, do I even need to talk about Uncharted 3? This one should be obvious. You go to Syria and Yemen in this game in 2011, the same year that the Arab Spring and subsequent civil war and genocide started respectively. Aside from that, where do we even go? France? How can I point out a bad thing in France? It's France. That's like searching for a needle in a needle stack. A flashback takes us to Colombia, which in 2011 was ravaged by floods that killed 111 people. Funnily enough, if we use flashback logic here, we run into the middle of another civil war in 1991. So Nate managed to fuck over a country before Naughty Dog even existed. Nate's also kidnapped at one point and taken to a pirate hideout on the Gulf of Aden, which doesn't explicitly mean Somalia, but come on, it's Somalia. The bad things that happened in 2011 in Somalia are... Before we hit the 2 PS4 games, though, let's check in on some side content. A little side game called Uncharted Drake's Trail came out before the release of Uncharted 1. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that you hit the Netherlands in it, incorrectly labeled as Holland, fucking amateurs. That exact same year, an outbreak of Q fever hit the big NL, which sounds like a right-wing dance pop band, but I'm assured is a real and very deadly disease. Golden Abyss is an Uncharted game for the PlayStation Vita, which takes Nate to Panama again to seek the titular Golden Abyss. It came out in 2012 as a launch title, and as far as I can tell, nothing super bad happened in that year to Panama. I guess the curse was transferred to the Vita itself, because this is just about the only first-party Sony title to ever come to the system. What else are you gonna play? Little Big Planet Vita? Fuck out of here, get that out of my face. This is the worst case of the curse so far because you can't look me in the eye and tell me any of the places we've visited so far were the PS Vita of countries. A comic came out in 2011 alongside Uncharted 3 called Uncharted: The Fourth Labyrinth. It's holy shit. Alright, so it starts in Ecuador, which is just about the only country on the list that doesn't get hit with the curse. It's only off by a year from an attempted coup though, so make of that what you will. Then we go to New York, and bam, Occupy Wall Street. Then we go to Egypt, and bam, coup and war. Then we go to Greece, and bam, economic crisis. Then we go to China, and This comic is like the Necronomicon of the Uncharted Curse. I'm pretty sure that hairline is forbidden knowledge or something at this point. Alright, last two games, and I'm gonna go out of order here and hit Lost Legacy first because it's far less intensive than 4. Lost Legacy takes place entirely in India. The game takes place in war-torn northern India and came out in 2017. In the same place, at the same time, but in reality, riots broke out that killed 41 people after a religious leader got convicted of very, very not religious things. Yeah. Now, the big one. My favorite Uncharted, and probably the last major installment ever. It's by far the longest Uncharted game to date, and by far the most polished, and it takes place mostly in Madagascar. There's also Italy and Scotland, but really, it doesn't seem like anything really happened in any of those locales. It might just be that the curse was broken, or maybe that it never existed in the first place. Maybe this curse is just like the Superman curse, a bunch of weird coincidences that we're just stringing along into a pattern because of the endlessly chaotic nature of the world. I mean, bad things happen to every country every year, so it's almost impossible to find a country that doesn't have some shit going down that I could nitpick about. That's just human nature. A perfectly peaceful society isn't going to exist in our lifetime or our grandkids' lifetimes. It might never exist at all. It might not even be possible. And there might not be a place on Earth a game could visit without being cursed in a few years. The world's getting worse, and there's nothing me or you or Naughty Dog can do about it. The only people who could change it don't care enough to do so because they don't have to. That's just human nature. And it's human nature that's going to destroy everything in the end. The best we can do is just... Oh shit, never mind. Madagascar had an outbreak of the Black Plague. Get fucking owned, Nathaniel. Welcome to the end card segment, where I go over questions left in the comments of the last video. We didn't get any questions in the last video, so I'm just going to make some up. John Commenter writes, "Hey Goat, what's your eye color?" I'm glad you asked, John Commenter. My eyes are blue. Fortnite441 asks, "Hey Goat, what color are your eyes?" I'm glad you asked, Fortnite441. My eyes are blue. Default Name asks, "What color eyes do you have?" I'm glad you asked, Default Name. My eyes are blue. Leave your comment for a chance to be featured on the next episode. Peace.